All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Exo Succeed. This is Gearface. I'm joined once again by Andarel. Andarel, thank you so much for being here.
Yep, no problem.
Uh,
Thank
he
you.
ha- he hasn't gotten sick of me yet. As always, very, very appreciative of your time here. And today we are learning about Jeanette, um, a some kind of I don't know vampire witch. She seems like probably a vampire witch. Andarel can probably give me the backstory here. Um, Before we do that, though, a couple disclaimers before we get started. Number one, we're going to be talking about playing to win on this show. Uh, that is not the only way to play Exceed. You can play Exceed for fun. And in fact, I encourage you to play Exceed for fun because it turns out it's a pretty fun game. In particular, the character that we're talking about today is currently not in competitive rotation. She's a part of season 2. So if you've got into this game via season 7, Guilty Gear Strive, this character is not one that you'll ever see in tournament. So if you ever do have to play Jeanette to win, it's going to be in some kind of legacy event or just, with your friends at a casual thing. That doesn't mean that the stuff we're talking about isn't less useful or less relevant. But if the stuff that we're talking about isn't fun to you, please don't play the way that we're describing. Please play the way that you do find fun. Number two, we tend to be pretty prescriptive about strategy on this show. Uh, and you're going to hear Andarel say things like, always do this. This is the most important thing. Never do this. All of those kind of absolutes are not set in stone. Exceed's not a solved game. Although I will say that the characters from season 2 were in competitive rotation for long enough that we know a lot about them. People have gotten very, very, very good and very in the weeds on this season. That doesn't mean that we know everything, and that doesn't mean that your playstyle with this character um, uh, can't differ from what Andarel is going to tell us. So these are the rules to Andarel's strategy with Jeanette. They don't have to be yours. So tell us where we got wrong. Tell us what we're undervaluing. I'd love to hear from you. Yeah, all that said, Andarel, tell me a little bit about Jeanette.
Sure. So, from what I recall of the Seventh Cross lore, it's been a hot minute. She's like the emperor of a fallen magical kingdom thing.
Okay.
She or empress, I guess. She does magic. She is. If you look at her whole like flavor text going on, she basically is offering sacrifices to some evil forces. I'm pretty sure her Exceed mode is based off of, weirdly enough, Christian mythology, the like Harlot of Babylon type thing, or some
Okay.
other equivalent, non-family friendly equivalents in history in Christian mythology.
Sure, sure.
But with that said, Jeanette is a weird character because she was designed as one of the first couple characters who's like a mage, which is never a thing that Exceed's really been great at. I think like the coolest mage in Exceed's probably Devris.
Everest, right.
Um, but Jeanette kind of hits a lot of the notes that, if you remember how Enchantress has that boost, it's like you have to move or you get blown up.
Right.
Um, she kind of has a similar vibe. That boost was designed, kind of inspired by this Spell Circle card. But as anyone who's played competitively at the Jeanette, and she's a pretty reasonable character, though she doesn't have the consistency to be like a true monster compared to some of the rest of the season 2 characters,
Right.
knows that Jeanette believes that the best form of magic is throwing hands. She is the weirdest grappler in the game. She is pretty much officially a grappler. She's one of the scariest grapplers in the game, and once she exceeds, she just kind of like flips and starts walking up and punching you until you stop moving,
Okay.
which is a little silly compared to how she was designed, but also kind of sick.
Yeah, that's actually rad. I think that the best kind of mage is the kind of mage who throws hands. So I'm down with
Yeah,
this interpretation.
her basically her like normal side is she's like sets a spell on the board and then tries to blow you up with it, and then her exceed mode is like, why would I
Why
cast a
would I
spell? I'm
why would I
just
bother
gonna
with
buff
that?
myself. Yeah,
Yeah.
just stack buffs.
She breaks out like the diamond encrusted brass knuckles.
Yeah, or that bell or something. Actually, if you look at it, it's just like JoJo's ass aura.
Oh yeah. Yeah, she's definitely she's going full anime. We unlock her
Yeah.
final form. Okay, cool. So I'm starting out kind of the first half of the game. I'm kind of playing like a zoner type thing, and then midway through, I'm gonna flip and turn into this big scary brute.
Sort of. So the thing to know about Jeanette is that Jeanette has an ability. It's just very situational, and I don't mean that there are situations in which it is good, because even then, it's just such a weird ability that may or may not be good.
Okay.
It's that it like does a very specific thing that the opponent has to react to.
Okay.
Just to kind of walk you through how it works. I'm gonna put the
Yeah.
cards off to
Yeah.
the side for a
Let me
second.
move these guys down for 1 second here.
Okay. So as an action, you can put the magic circle on any space, doesn't matter where, um, and you put a card onto it face down,
Okay. And
and
it's got to be
it's got to be a special or an
a
ultra.
special ultra. Here we go. So I put this down.
Yep. And then and that's your turn. You do get to draw a card.
Okay.
Plus you draw for turn, so it's like a Bizarro change cards.
it's like a super prep. Oh no, I guess not. I'm putting something
No, because
down.
you lose
So,
a card. Yeah,
right.
because you
Okay.
lose a card.
Yeah. It's a weird
And then
change
on your
cards.
turn, if this is on the board, you have to strike. You
Okay.
must strike.
Okay.
And because of the text on spell circle, uh, if you choose to strike with the attack that you put on this card, it calculates range from this space,
Okay.
which is a really powerful ability, right? You know
Sure.
that from seeing basically any other strike from a distance cards, like Zato's got it, Carmine's got it,
Sure. Yeah. Those can be character
Mista's
defining,
got
and
it.
even
Yeah,
characters like Shovel and Shield or something like that. Like there's a lot you
yeah,
can do
they've got it.
with a disjointed hitbox.
Yeah, anything that messes with range and correspondingly anything that messes with range or speed
Right.
is really scary. So if you strike with this, then you basically just strike with that. So Profane Sanctuary would hit these 5 spaces,
Right.
right? One between there and there. And noted a lot of her cards do have zeros, so moving on to the circle is not like a safe method of dodging.
It's not totally safe. Right.
Yeah, pretty much. I think 5 out of 7.
Yeah. It looks like
Yeah, five.
all but Charnel Blast and Black Death do.
Yeah, 5 out of 7 still hit the circle, so you can't just hop on it and call it a bay.
Okay.
Um, but if you choose to not strike with it, then you just strike normally. Nothing special happens.
Okay. So I have to strike. I don't have to strike from here. So I could just throw a
Exactly.
normal. I could throw another special that isn't coming from the circle. In
Yep.
which case, this card just goes away.
Yeah, if they strike into you for whatever reason, then you can use this also.
Okay.
Like it's just you may strike with it. So, but if it's your turn, you have to strike, right? And they're gonna be able to see that you're using this because you say what you're you set your card when you declare your strike.
Right. Okay.
So it's not like you can hide it unless they strike into you.
Right.
So yeah, so basically it's an interesting ability. The sort of concept behind it, and it really does play out in practice, is that you get to do this really powerful disjointed ability, and then the opponent gets like one turn to react to it. They can throw a
Okay.
boost down, they can move, they can use a special ability of some other sort. Like they get one turn to do something. And if they are, for example, low on hand size, and they have to just eat your spell circle, then that can be pretty scary because I mean, what's the opponent going to do here? They not much.
Right. Well, with this particular card, nothing because it doesn't hit. But if you were actually doing this, I pick this at random. If you were doing this with
or if I
this
put it like
guy,
here,
sure.
if I put Profane Sanctuary here, then they have to move 5 to get out
Right.
of it, or
Right.
just like eat 3 damage for free.
And
And
they can't. Dive doesn't work by. This isn't me. It doesn't.
correct, yeah, it's
I'm
just the
not
magic circle.
right. I'm not diving. I'm not diving over the source of the attack, so I can't get out of it with dives. Uh, before effects.
Exactly, exactly.
Because they
So
didn't switch with me. Okay.
yeah, it's really good if the opponent has to just like sit there and deal with it. But a lot of characters, if it's a more quote unquote fair game, if it's not actually us at literally taxi meta full board, if it's something
Sure.
more like this, then it's not that impressive. And Jeanette's
Right.
not terribly mobile is the main thing. So it's more of a if things happen to pan out that way, it's great. If
Right.
not, this is probably not worth dropping a spell circle on.
Okay.
The other thing that's really important is that Jeanette's cards are really good. They're often a little bit situational, but because you're always committing a card no matter what, and like you're cycling through your deck, you can run into issues where you don't want to drop your specials. They're really freaking good. Like this is
Right.
an amazing card.
Right.
So you have to deal with that a little bit, where you're like telegraphing A, it's a special or ultra, which is it's information you're giving away, and B, even if you choose not to use the spell circle, if you did something like we showed earlier, where it was here, and then they move back one to try and get out an affliction or a profane sanctuary or something,
Right.
or a Carmine offering, then you just wasted a card. You just like chucked it, which is
Right.
not the end of the world because you got your resources back, but it's still annoying. These cards are
Sure.
great. You want to be
Sure.
hitting with them.
Sure. And obviously, like I'm setting something up. My opponent is spending resources of some kind to diffuse them, even if it's just a turn or something. Like Ryu's kind of a weird example because he can move kind of for free, but I can't just make my opponent react to this and whiff with it. I do want to be hitting with this if I'm putting it down.
Yeah, and you also have to play it like not knowing what they're gonna do.
Right.
You can obviously choose not to respect what they play, but you have to put the card down, let them guess what you're playing, and then basically, yeah, that.
Right.
So it's really important to note the second ability on Spell Circle, which is when a strike ends, you burn this, you take it off the board, and you discard any cards still on it.
Right.
So you don't just if you like strike from here, you don't get to keep it out there and threaten. It's literally just a one shot deal.
It's a one and done. The spell fizzles basically.
Yeah,
Okay.
basically.
So
You fake them out.
should I basically just be ignoring this ability most of the time until it is like a low
I
hand
think
size
that's kind
long
of had
range?
people what people landed on. I mean, it's a thing to keep in your pocket if you want to use it, and it might be correct or interesting. It's a kind of a fun ability,
Yeah.
but strategically, you're giving a lot of control to the opponent, so you might want to just ignore it, and that's fine. Jeanette has other abilities. She's really got like 3 unique abilities in a trench coat. So
Right.
yeah, she has 4 transforms. So that's all that.
So
So yeah, like
she's
you
not going
can
to be
kind of spin
lacking
on that.
she's not going to be lacking for uniqueness if I don't use her spell circle, but I can maybe ignore it outside of specific circumstances.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the more important ability, which is if once you get some transforms down for your discount and you can flip, because remember you get -2 gauge cost to flip.
Yes.
You get the Devil's Own, which has the same ability. In other words, as an action, you can put a card in your hand onto your Diabolic Aura, then draw a card.
Right.
So it's basically the same ability, right? You get to spend a card and draw a card.
Right.
But
Except that there's no then you must strike rider on this.
yeah, there's no more spell circle. It's just this card still exists, but it disappears off the board. It's now your
Okay.
little charge up space.
Okay.
And this gives you a new hit effect. And the hit effect is for each card in here, so each card that you've placed here, containing a range to the opponent. So if it was here, it would be every card with a 7 range.
Right.
If it was here, it'd be every card with a 2 range, so like 1 to 2 or 1 to 3.
Sure.
You get +3 power. Now, two important clauses in there. The first one is +3 power, which we all know is nuts.
That's a lot. Yeah.
And the second one is for each.
So I can, because I'm not striking on front side, it says on your turn, if you spell circles on a space, you must strike. There's nothing like that for Diabolic Aura.
Yeah.
I can I can charge up multiple times.
Yep. And also, it discards all the cards in here when a strike ends. So if they strike into you, you're going to lose all your spell circle. If they stun you and you don't
Right.
get to hit back, or if you whiff, you lose them all.
Right.
But every time you hit, as long as you have the right card in here, it's a good +3 power delivery system.
Okay.
So yeah, you just throw hands, right? You if you look at your cards and if you look at the normals, like zeros don't matter here. You're not gonna get +0 range,
Right.
or you're not gonna get 0 range unless something is very weird. But this contains range 1 to 2. That's got 1, 1 to 3, 3 to 6. Like a lot of cards in the game just happen to be range 1 to 3, 1 to 2 ish.
Sure. Yeah. Looking at the
The
normals here,
normals
I
have a
got
lot of 1s and
plenty of
2s
things here.
yeah, specifically there's a pair of 3s. There's I think it's 6 1s and a couple 2s. It's
Right.
so that basically is your effective range now. You just want to be sitting there letting your aura beat the crap out of them.
Okay.
And that's your ability.
Okay.
It's amazing.
So on front side, I am striking from this. On exceed side, I'm striking kind of from with anything but what is in this, because this is just like, so if I put Profane Sanctuary down on my Diabolic Aura, I'm not striking with this. All this is
Yeah,
doing is giving me +3 power if my attack is if my opponent is
if you
within
want to
move
think
0
about
to 2.
it, it's like this is a buff enchantment, right? Like you've enchanted your attacks with +3 power in this range.
Okay. Gotcha. All
So
right.
literally, you're just like doing the DBZ power up and then punching them really hard.
Makes sense. Okay, I'm into that.
So yeah, your goal is you've got a kind of an awkward early game because your cards are really good but a little bit funky and not great on defense.
Right.
And then your goal late game, even though you don't really have advantage options, you can just destroy their strikes.
Right.
You want to hit them really hard a couple of times until they stop moving.
Right. Are you typically, you know, +3 power is cool, but Andarel, you know what else is cool is +6 power or +9 power. Is it
So
is it practical to
that's a really good question that we should talk about after we talk about cards, actually.
Okay, cool. We will return to that.
So yeah, because it plays interestingly with her abilities.
Sounds good.
So yeah, so let's talk about cards.
Yeah.
Jeanette has 5 specials, 2 ultras, just like most of the rest of the cast. 4 of the specials have transforms. These 4. Those are the 4 that are not really particularly slows. Like she has the sweep like essentially, and
Okay.
then 3 kind of fast options, and then a projectile.
Right.
What you need to know about her cards is that her cards' power numbers are either pretty much 3 or 6, right?
Yep.
Like, and it's not like they get plus power from anything. Like the 2 slows hit extremely hard, and the 2 fasts. I mean, 3
Tickle.
damage isn't tickling, but it's pretty close to tickling.
Yeah.
It's annoying. Um, the main thing about Jeanette, the reason she wants to hit you is because when she hits you, she gets her transforms,
Okay.
and her transforms are phenomenal.
Okay.
So this isn't a Joffrey situation where her transforms are like, hey, this is my only character.
Right.
But let's kind of run through what you're doing. So this is Affliction. This card is weird and it's below curve, right? It's got 0 to 1 range, and so but it is quite fast at 6. And it's got an ability that doesn't show up very often. You can gain advantage, you can play a boost from hand. You being able to play a boost from hand mid strike is nice. You can, because it's a hit effect, you can use it to like drop fierce if you're feeling brave and want 2
Oh,
extra power,
because
or you can
damage
play a
damage is calculated after the hit effect would occur. So I
yeah.
could still
So
get
like some common cards you might some common boosts you might play with this are run to get out of to dodge an attack, or backstep similarly.
Okay.
Those are pretty classy. You can play tech if the opponent has like a really expensive boost that they're trying to counterattack you with.
Okay. So stun
You can put
immunity or something.
oh, well, or yeah. So this actually can remove guardy boosts. Like if they play defend and you whack them with affliction, you
Right.
can tech the defend, which is pretty funny.
Right.
Um, but also if they have just a big like plus power boost, you
Oh,
don't
sure.
have any other options, you can tech that.
Just get rid of that. Right.
These 4 are pretty common. Enervation is like the funniest option because you
Sure.
do have to pay. But again, it can be an auto dodge in the right situation.
Right. And
So
I'm noticing uh conspicuous in its absence is light, because if I'm already hitting, there's no point in having speed.
yeah, light's not really doing anything for you.
Okay.
Uh, the only reason to play light is if like something cares a lot about speed, and honestly, most things that care a lot about speed, you'd want to be slower, not faster.
Right.
But yeah, so that's Affliction. It's a weird card. It's kind of a role player. It's the first card you want to hit with, though. If you can hit with Affliction, everything's looking great.
Okay.
Because the transformation on Affliction is bonkers.
Yeah.
So Curse the Earth gives you plus 0 to 1 range passively, and you know how good that is.
Yes. That's stuff that you pay for. That's not passive.
Yeah, it's I think the only free plus range in the game on a transform. You have
Okay.
like Axel and stuff but those have trade-offs.
Right.
I
Sure.
guess Lily gives you plus range, but again, that's your character ability. This is just the
Right.
transform.
Right. Right.
And what's notable actually is that you have 2 cards that are on curve. 0 to 2 on curve, and
now they're above curve
that are now above curve,
at
and
3 and
Affliction
4.
becomes on curve.
Okay.
Which is really good.
Okay.
So yeah, Affliction, first card you want to hit with, makes Eternal Blast a 1 to 4 sweep, which is
Beats
really
cross.
good. Beats Cross. Makes Black Death slightly more comedy, but it's Black Death. It does what it does.
Right.
So yeah, that's Affliction. It's really good. It's a little awkward to work around, but it's super flexible. You play it, and if it hits, you're probably in a good position.
Right.
It is your only source of advantage. Like at all because there's no advantage on the normal boosts. You can get advantage from playing Assault, and you probably will at some point because
Right.
it's great.
Sure.
But Affliction is another source of advantage, and on a character like this that tends to hit really hard, advantage is super good.
Right. Okay. So this is. I mean, I feel like yeah, there being the 0 to 1 on here, the idea is that you would be hitting this with your spell circle. But in practice, I just got to get up to range 1 and bop somebody with this.
Yeah, the problem is that this card is kind of hard to hit with because
Yeah.
people respect it. People will not necessarily play like playing grasp is a little bit of a call out into a character with good slows, which he doesn't really have great slows. But you don't want to eat like her sweep or focus.
Sure. Sure.
There is a little bit of weirdness that we'll talk about as we get to Carmine Offering because that card is so game warping. Um, but yeah, so you've got Affliction. It's you're trying to find a way to land it or cheat it out
Okay.
because it's such good value.
Okay. And
So let's actually take a. Oh, go
ways to
ahead.
ways to cheat it out, just for people who are not familiar with season 2, include EX transforms. If I had this in my hand, for example, if I had 2 copies of Affliction, I wouldn't even need to hit with it. I could just discard one, put the other one in my transform area as an action on my turn.
Yep, and you might do that. It's perfectly a good transform. It's one of your 2 priority transforms, I think.
Okay, but this is
Um,
the one that I should get first, not because it's more important, but because it's going to help land the other ones.
yes, exactly.
Got it.
It makes your gameplay much more flexible.
Okay.
So, speaking of ways to cheat out, let's talk about one of the best cards in the game.
Okay.
Carmine Offering. Imagine if you're sure you had Ignore Guard.
Yeah.
Uh,
Okay. This
it's
just wins combat.
Yeah, it basically just deletes the opponent. It wins combat. It wins future combats because on hit you can transform a card from your hand.
Okay.
This is I think whenever people make lists of top ultras in the game, this is very frequently on the list.
Also,
Um,
one gauge ultra is not
yeah,
expensive.
it's dirt cheap. It makes it really dangerous to strike into her at range 1. Range 2 rather.
Right.
It beats slows very consistently, which is just kind of annoying to do on these kind of slower, more defensive early game characters.
Right.
And on hit, you get a little bit of damage, but you probably don't get hit back, and you get a free transform, which is incredible.
Okay.
This card is amazing. You can save it for defense if you want. You can strike with it if you want. Note that it does trade down into focus pretty significantly because 2 damage ignore guard is not that much
Yeah.
if they have any armor
And if
involved.
if they have exactly 2 armor, you're doing 0 damage and taking 4, but you're getting a
Yeah.
transform.
Oh yeah, no, you're not doing bad, but
Yeah.
it's still it loses to focus, and focus likes like things like the shrug off type characters. I think Tiger Upper I think has that shape.
Yep. Sure.
Anything that's got like the before armor, after lose all armor.
Yep.
The other thing about Carmine Offering is that because it's so good, you do not want to play risky with it. If there's the risk, if they have like +1 speed and you might get crossed out, like this is not a card you just throw
Right.
speculatively.
You really want to
It's too valuable.
win the speed tie. If they've got EX grasp up, don't play it at range 1. Like you've got
Yeah,
to be
or
afraid
accept
of
that you're
this.
taking a significant risk.
Right. Okay. I'm also
It's
noticing. I'm sorry to interrupt. This
Yeah,
is always going to be range 0 to 2. Curse the Earth doesn't affect ultras. Specials are not ultras.
correct. It does
So
not affect ultras. Curse
I
the Earth
will
only affects the 5 specials.
I will merely have to content myself with a 0 to 2/7 ignore guard that lets me transform a card from my hand. I won't go to
Yeah,
0 to 3.
yeah,
Fine, I
correct.
guess.
Correct. It's got a pretty good boost actually.
Okay.
It gives you +0 to range at no cost other than playing it, which is pretty scary in the late game or if there's options.
Right.
It also it's because it's a passive ability. It also buffs cards in your Diabolic Aura, which means that your effective good punching range gets bigger,
Oh, okay.
which can lead to some pretty good silliness.
Yeah, that's really scary. So now I put a sweep down in there, and now if they're within 5 spaces of me, I have +3 power.
Yeah, or really importantly, you put like a dive down, and since dive's range is now 1 to 3, you can play like a range 3 grasp and get the plus power off of dive. Right,
Oh
because the
yeah.
grasp also has 0 to 2. It basically if the opponent's not at range 1, you can start slapping them very hard with basically anything.
Right. So because both the thing in the Diabolic Aura and the attack that I would be playing next turn would both benefit from that range. Interesting. Okay.
Exactly.
So it sounds like Carmine Offering is something that I'm doing in the early game to confirm transforms and just kind of to win combat for sort of free. And then in the late game, when I have all my stuff online and maybe I don't need transforms anymore, am I gunning for Dominion over the Earth, or is Carmine Offering
So
still
it's
valuable?
it's an interesting question because in the late game, right, you probably have access to plus power, which covers up its main weakness, right?
Oh,
Because if
sure.
you're
Now it
swinging with
beats
that 5
focus.
power, now it beats everything.
Right.
And it's also a 1 gauge ultra, so you can pretty much just do it.
Okay.
So it kind of evolves to be whatever you want. Late game, it's still an above curve, kill shot at range 2
On a character who has
because
consistent access to +2 power, or I'm sorry, +3 power, anything
yeah,
above curve is
at range.
scary.
Yeah, so it's a terrifying card pretty much all times, but especially early game because it gets her engine going.
Okay.
And what that means is that baseline Jeanette, when she's got like no gauge and she has no ways of getting gauge outside of hitting with things, she's got nothing that gives her gauge. Baseline Jeanette is this is her defense. Like this is her offense, this is her defense, this is her engine. If you parry this, or if she whiffs it, or if it gets stunned, you're really sad.
Okay.
If you don't, if you don't draw it, you kind of have to play around your other stuff, which is still acceptable, but you're going to be just kind of like wet noodling them for a bit until you get rolling.
Right. So am I like hardcore change cards action to get this if I don't have it early?
Uh,
Or is it
yes, with
or is that too telegraphed because they'll just parry it when I get it?
yeah, that's gonna say yes with the caveat that it can get parried pretty easily,
Okay.
and it's a pretty dangerous card to get parried just because
Okay.
it's so important for you. Again, you can play fine without it. It's just landing this is very good, and the opponent has to just accept they're going to get hit by it at some point, probably, which means they can trade with focus, they can trade with other defensive shapes. They can try and save speed boost because she doesn't really have a great way of dealing with speed boosts. She's
Right.
got no real stats outside of this boost.
And outside of her the weight set that she gets to when she's exceeding and just
Yeah, I
gets
mean
buff.
she's got red numbers,
Right,
but
yeah, she doesn't have any yellow numbers.
yeah, I mean she's
Okay.
got plus range here, kind of plus range here, but
Right.
it's a little finicky.
Right. Sure.
Yeah, she has a range manipulation sub theme, right?
Right.
That's how she rolls.
Sure.
So, all right, that's the aside into Carmine Offering. This card is nuts. Play it, love it. It's your engine. Profane Sanctuary. This card is also nuts, but it's different nuts.
Okay.
This card is one of the silliest cross likes in the game. It is basically a 0-2 6 effective power that gets you a free card in the process. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't hit very hard, but it doesn't really get hit back very hard either.
Yeah. Unless I got a
Um,
DP, I've got the 3 armor.
yeah, or if you get like spiked or something, you're sad. But it's
Right.
very reliable. The main issue is that it does tend to trade, and you tend to eat hits in the process. Like in general,
Okay.
you're not very mobile. Your fast cards don't do a lot of power, and they're not evasive. So you're gonna take some damage outside of Carmine Offering Lucky Stuns.
Right.
So this is a likely card to trade, and that's chipping away at your health bar, which is your main resource.
Okay.
Um, so it's really good though. It's got a lot of effective power. It's just a lot of that is in defense.
Right.
Um, it's
Because
hard to really speak too much past that. It's such a straightforward card.
yeah, I mean it's it. What if 6 power cross it doesn't? What if all of the retreat on cross was armor instead? Basically.
Yeah, basically, it's like it doesn't dodge things, which means it beats a lot of cross counters, but it also doesn't quite beat a lot of the things that cross would beat.
Sure. And
Also
you
doesn't really get screwed by corner and things like that.
and you might prefer the positioning of cross in some places where you want to get it to a certain range. So
Exactly.
there's it's a side grade. It's not a replacement for cross.
Yeah.
Um, how frequently, now that we're talking about some things, another card that actually has, another card that's special. When I'm looking at Profane Sanctuary, for 75% of the game, does this card have 0-3 range? Like how well or how much of the game should I be thinking that I have Curse the Earth up?
I don't really know if. I remember I said really at the beginning that Jeanette doesn't have like the consistency that a lot of the season 2 monsters do.
Yeah, yeah,
You might have Curse the Earth stuff, you might not. You just have to play based on what you've got.
Okay,
Like,
so don't go into the game assuming the way that some characters who like exceed on turn 2 and then for the rest of their game we're like really you're in your exceed mode the whole game. Don't go in assuming that all these things have range.
yeah, if this has +0, if this has +0 to 1 range and you're at range 3, then great. It still trades with sweep,
Right.
but it's gonna probably beat like everything else except Spike.
Right.
It's just a good card,
Okay.
and it's even better with extra range.
Makes sense.
Bloodthorns is the last of the fast trio. This card is a little weird. It's so hit pull one towards the origin means if it's being cast from the spell circle,
Right.
it'll pull them towards the spell circle, which is potentially super relevant, especially because it has a lot of range. It's if this card has the +0 to 1 range and you put it in the middle of the board, it actually hits the whole board. It is
Yeah.
one of very few cards that do
Yeah.
that.
This is a one. I mean, it's not actually a 1 to 8. It's a 0 to 8, basically. But
Yeah, it's a 0 to 8 from the middle,
right, 0
which
to 4,
is
0 to 4 in both directions. Okay. Um.
um, which is nice. It's 3 power. It's probably not getting much more power. If you're exceeded, that you can't do that anymore because you don't have your spell circle.
Right.
But so hit pull one towards the origin is your only real evasive tool. I mean, you don't have too much else for evasion, and that doesn't really do that much, but it can matter.
So
The
so
after, oh yeah, go ahead.
this would be I put this down here. Oops. Ah, there we go. I put this down here, reuse here, and now he can't sweep me because I've I've pulled him back with
Yeah, you pull
Bloodthorns.
him. You pull
But
him onto the spell circle.
that's something that I needed to do the turn before on front
Exactly.
side. Okay, this is not a reactive dodge. This is a plan ahead kind of dodge.
Yeah, and especially in the situation where they're here, right? If they try and move to here to get out of the way of affliction, for example, you just
Right.
like pull them back, and you can try and throw a spell circle again next turn or something.
Okay.
You're just burning their resources.
Okay.
What's unusual about Bloodthorns, and a lot of people mix this up. I mix this up. The after and the hit are different effects. The after will always happen, and the after is actually the scarier effect.
Okay.
So the after, which says the opponent can't move, is like you're putting up, a wall of thorns around the arena.
Right.
They can't move.
Right.
Which means it will actually beat. And I know season 7 has a bunch of those like slow sweep likes where their hit confirm is them running at you.
Sure, or like a Tatsu or something like that.
Yeah, so it will beat those just by virtue of the movement freeze, and it can do that regardless of whether it hits or not,
Right.
which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
It's
So I don't need to put it in the middle of the arena with my spell circle in order to use it as a denial tool or a dodge tool. I could just assume that they're diving in on me and play it defensively or just preemptively to stop
yeah,
them from doing it. But
and honestly,
it's also just an above curve attack.
okay, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was
Or
saying it's also just an above
onto
curve
above
attack.
curve.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
onto above curve.
Yeah.
But yeah, like if this card was made today, I think the hit and the after would be combined, probably be like hit, pull one, the opponent can't move for us to strike, just to
Right.
clean up, and it would be a nerf, but I would clean up a lot of silliness.
Right.
But in general, it's a good attack. It's like what I said earlier. Her cards are really good, and they do specific things that other characters don't really have that much access to.
Right.
But it's not going to like stop you from a fast dive or any kind of like assault with plus stats. You have to use it to beat specific shapes.
Right. And you would be in those cases if you were trying to beat those, you'd have to initiate with it. So
Yeah,
it
I
has
mean, or if what I'm saying is if you're using the after to like stop the opponent from hitting you,
right.
you don't have to initiate with that, but it is more speed sensitive
Right. Yeah.
if you beat the speed tie, because a lot of fast dives are 5.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, let's kind of loop back around and talk about the transforms. So our fast cards all have transforms. We talked a bunch about Curse the Earth. Blood Ritual. There's really not much else that does this in the game. It's a really funny ability where, as an action, you can ping the opponent.
Right.
So you discard a card, they take one, and then you draw a card, and then you draw another card for a turn.
Right.
It's fine. The card's pretty easy to hit, so you're really likely to get this. And transforming is great because it makes your exceed cheaper, and your exceed mode is one of the best in the game because the +3 power is really good. But if you get Blood Ritual as a transform and you never use it, you just use it to make your ability cheaper, that's totally reasonable.
Okay.
Getting 2 effective gauge out of your transform is a perfectly reasonable ability.
Right.
If you want to use it, especially if the opponent is at kind of an awkward health number and you're not in a position to strike, it might make sense to use, because if they're at like 7 life or 8 life and you want to get them down to a range where you threaten a one shot, that's not unreasonable, because sometimes one life matters a lot.
Sure, definitely. And
But
they can't. I mean, one of the mitigating factors of striking and exceed is that whenever I put down a card to strike to do damage to my opponent, they put down a card too. There's no.
yeah,
This is just how I spend my turn. I just do a damage to them.
yeah, you like chant a spell and some card pokes them or something.
Right.
And you do actually still end up a card, right? You discard a card and you drew 2 cards.
Right.
So the downside, of course, is you have to discard a card containing your range to them. So it's a card that you probably had a chance of using.
Hoping to put on my Diabolic Aura anyway.
Yeah. So that's the risk, and it's not a great transform. It's certainly the worst of her 4 transforms, but it's still 2 gauge, and it might matter.
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
if you have no gauge, you might not transform this, just because the difference for her of having 0 and 1 gauge is so big, because Carmine Offering turns on.
Right. Otherwise, it's
But
just a nice to have.
yeah, it's a nice to have.
Okay.
If you're already exceeded, you take this as a gauge, I think, always.
Okay. Makes sense.
If you're not exceeded and you already have 2 transforms, maybe you take this as a gauge, because it's 1 anyways.
Then you're at your now you have 1 gauge. Awesome. Now you can exceed.
Yeah. The other thing that matters a lot for her is that because transforms leave your deck and they like stay in play, and she tends to run through her deck at a reasonable clip.
Okay.
Not having an extra copy of these in the deck is kind of annoying when you're going through your second reshuffle.
Okay. So I
So
might actually want to maintain this in order to just get it because it's a good attack later.
exactly, like
Okay.
it's not a bad idea to just hold an extra, like take it as a gauge, spend it, and now it's back in your deck, and you have 2
Right.
Profane Sanctuaries
Right.
next go around.
And
Because that 3 armor looks great when you're not dying.
that is not true at all of Affliction.
Yeah, you just take Affliction. Like,
Right.
if you have
Okay.
Curse the Earth, you take Curse the Earth.
Makes sense.
It's that good.
Okay.
Ley Lines, a little worse than Curse the Earth. Change extra cards when you change cards. Obviously, change cards is a good action.
Right.
Getting free cards is always good. It's the only economy you've got, so cherish it. You have, like, draw a card on this. That's it. So having any economy outside of, like, the rebates that you get on things is pretty nice.
Right.
So it's good. I think Remulus has the same transform,
Yep. And
and she also likes it.
it's kind of like it turns you into like Guile for a little bit, or like mini Guile.
I mean, the main thing about it is that it lets you, because you tend to spend a bunch of cards when you hit, but like you don't necessarily go down in hand size. You're just kind of burning through your deck, because right, you're spending cards, drawing cards back, but you're still burning a bunch of resources.
Right. Okay.
So it helps you kind of shape your hand. It helps you just get cards. Like if I toss a gauge and a card from my hand to draw 3 plus 1 for turn, that's a pretty sizable reload.
Right.
And you're a bursty character. You wanna just get pressure and go beat them up. You don't want to be sitting there doing a mix of like strike, draw, strike, draw. You want to draw a bunch so you can spend your time striking.
Okay.
So it's good. Cards are cards.
Yeah. If that's the playstyle you're going for, where you are building up a ton of resources, then spending them all, and then building up again, you want to spend less time building up.
Exactly.
Okay. Makes sense.
So let's talk about the big brother of Bloodthorns, which is Black Death. Bloodthorns pulls 1, Black Death pulls 3, and it's
Yep.
much slower, and it's a slow projectile. Does have 5 guard, so you run the risk of getting stunned. One of the better projectiles in the game, to be honest. It's got good coverage. It's got 6 power. It pulls them to you. It's a really scary card, except you don't want to play this card if you can avoid it, because the transform is so good
Yeah.
that missing it is super dangerous. So Ritual Magic, which is one of the better transforms out there, basically says after you boost or add a card to your Diabolic Aura, you can pay a force to strike. So it's reliable, excellent action compression. And
On a character who is able to strike with +1, or sorry, +3 power whenever she has something in here. So I can say on my turn, sick. Okay, put something in my Diabolic Aura. Strike with +3 power now.
yes, You do have to spend extra cards, right? Because you get one card, you pay a card to put in your aura, you draw a card, and then you have to pay another card, and then you have to pay another card for striking. So you're basically paying 3 cards total.
Right.
You're paying 3 cards and drawing one. And that's not nothing. That's expensive. You are getting to strike with +3 power.
Right.
So that part's great. The problem is you're gonna run out of deck.
Right.
Because if they have ways of neutralizing your Diabolic Aura, whether they have above curve options, they have boost down, then that's kind of rude. So you asked way at the beginning, how many cards do you put into your aura? This is where things get a little bit interesting, because Ritual Magic forces you to strike. It's not take another action. So
Right.
you can't be like Diabolic Aura, Ritual Magic, Diabolic Aura, as funny
Right.
as that would be.
Right.
But if you already have a card in your aura, then it starts opening up things like aura, Ritual Magic, strike with +6 power.
Okay, this is actually, going into a more recent season for comparison here. This is like it's a supercharged version of Let's Rock, where Let's Rock basically says like, all right, I'm a season 7 character. I can spend my resources if you give me a turn to make your life very bad. If I ever put something in my Diabolic Aura and my opponent doesn't deal with it right then, Ritual Magic Strike +6 power, just deal with it.
Yeah, or I mean, +6 power is pretty good, but what about like light Ritual Magic, right? Or run Ritual Magic, or like backstep Ritual Magic, right?
Right,
Those are all really annoying,
right,
and they give you if your opponent doesn't have a lot of doesn't have advance options left, if they're kind of a relatively short range band character,
right.
doing something like backstep Ritual Magic Black Death, backstab Ritual Magic Strike with Black Death, and then
Oh,
you pull them into range to get the Diabolic Aura
it's
buff.
it's not just a continuous boost. You can use any sort of boost with it. So
Yep,
so
any boost.
so this is +3 power now strike from your Diabolic Aura, but it's also preemptive strike on Guile. It's also I mean, if you don't have something in your Diabolic Aura, but you do have a Fierce, it's Powerful Blow. It's Parry Strike.
Yep, the good old look at the opponent's hand, now strike,
Now Strike.
maybe
Interesting.
discard a thing. It's really good.
Okay.
It's her best transformation. It gives you a ton of action compression, and it makes you feel unfair, right? Like you get
Yeah.
to do pretty much anything as long as you're willing to spend the resources. As mentioned, though, the downside is you don't have card draw. You've got that and that.
Right. And yeah, your change cards, right.
Yeah, and so you also don't generate a lot of gauge because you want to transform your first 2 transformations and you want to spend gauge on Carmine.
Right.
And you might spend the gauge from this on change cards afterwards after you hit with it.
You're like, cool, that's two. That's two
Yeah, that's
force that
that's a
I've
start.
spent.
That's a
Yeah,
start.
that's not an
You're
economy.
you are like one of the best characters in the game at spending cards. You spend like 2 cards and the opponent just collapses. But those two
Right.
cards it's a significant expense.
So she is a grappler. She's Tager.
Yeah, but with magic.
Yeah, she's magical Tager.
Yeah, basically.
I'll take it.
Um, yeah, so that's what I mean. Like, she also has somewhat she's got the range sub theme, right? So if the opponent does the runaway thing, you can boost Dominion over the Earth, or play Black Death, or do Spell Circle.
Right.
So you're a grappler with a gun, right?
It's
The gun is the Spell Circle if they
right.
try and really hard anti-grappler you.
Right. Okay.
Or you also have Black Death, which this card hurts to get hit by.
Yeah, it's already 6 power. It's already really good.
But yeah, you're really a grappler. You're just like some fancy mage grappler or
Yeah,
something. I
okay.
don't know.
So you mentioned that I really don't want to strike with this because of the possibility this is not completely safe and I need this transform so bad. So if I'm not using Carmine Offering to get Curse the Earth into play, I'm using Carmine Offering to get Ritual Magic into play.
Yeah, and if you have
Ideally
both
I'm
in your
using
hand,
both.
if you have both in your hand, it is legitimately a good question which you'd want to do. Like if you have other specials, then maybe you do Curse the Earth because it helps you set up these.
Right.
But I think Ritual Magic is the better transformation, I think.
Right, sure. And this mentions our Diabolic Aura by name, but if this is our first transform and we're not in Exceed mode, awesome. Now I just have preemptive strike, expensive preemptive strike for the rest of
Yeah,
the
you
game.
could do preemptive strike into Affliction and get
Sure.
pierce the earth. It's
Sure.
not like it's not like it's bad. You can do pretty much whatever you want.
Right. Run,
What
strike,
else? Yeah, Black Death is
advance
also
3.
yeah. Like what else? Black Death is also one of the funniest cross counters in the game. If you're feeling like a baller,
If you're feeling awesome
yeah, it just feels real good. They run away, and you're just like, no, get back here,
and you
and you
pull
get
them
to.
back in, get your transform up at the same time.
Okay, if you're doing it and you don't already have the other copy transformed, then that's even more baller.
Yeah,
And
you
like,
don't
good job.
at that point you don't need this guide.
Yeah,
Y- You're doing just
you're
fine on
in
your
their
own.
head.
Yeah, you are winning this game.
Um,
So I'm EX transforming this if I can. I'm Carmine offering it if I can. Otherwise, is it like, am I just trying to confirm it off a light? Like, if this is so important to me, I need a way to do it. And unlike Affliction, which is at least 6 speed, this is not safe.
no, it's not. Yeah, you don't really have any ways to generate range. Like Joffrey, when we talked earlier, he kind of moves back and forth a lot, so he's kind of good at getting to range one if he wants to.
Right,
You can't you can't push. You can pull, maybe. You can pull
right,
one.
right.
Uh, so it's more of a if the opponent crosses out and they don't have a good follow up, maybe you can land it. But that they really have to be at range 6 for it to really matter, because
Yeah, 'cause
otherwise they
otherwise
can dive it.
they'll dive in. Sure,
If you have an EX of it and you feel like you can guaranteed hit it, then like go for it. It's still 7 power,
sure,
but that's don't do that if they can cross out, which means that you have to be in like a very specific situation.
right. Otherwise,
If you
EX
whiff EX
transform it.
Black Desk, you cry.
Otherwise, Carmine offering it. Just get it into play somehow.
Yeah, just do it. It's so good.
Because of how, and you mentioned earlier, like I gotta play with what I got with Jeanette. Because of
Yeah.
how difficult it is to confirm it, and because I'm sure my opponent's gonna be watching out for it, they'll parry this too if they aren't pairing Carmine offering. Should I enter the late game kind of assuming that I might not have this?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
And if you don't have it, you're sad. And you should do everything you can to get it. If you don't have it, you're looking at still having a good, really good ability. You still have reliable access to +3 power,
Right.
but you're going to need to play a rougher game.
Right. And what is that? What is? I mean, I guess we're getting to the point where we like. I think I can probably imagine what that late game looks like. Where I just if I have ritual magic, I use whatever resources I have to put a ridiculous boost on a ridiculous an attack and make the opponent blow up, or I
Yeah, basically.
put 2 diabolic auras down. What does that look
So
like if I don't have ritual magic?
so there is one other wrinkle. So ritual magic is everything you can do with ritual magic you can do without ritual magic, but it's slower,
It's
right? Like
slower.
you're still getting these abilities.
Right.
But what it really comes down to is you still have good cards. You're still a good kind of mid ranger. Like maybe you don't prioritize exceeding as much because this is really what breaks your exceed in half.
Okay.
Without the tempo on it, you might play a sort of slightly more neutral game. Uh, I think that's very important is that you do have a backup plan.
Okay.
And that's why let's talk about Channel Blast. So we'll skip the text. We'll talk about the boost. So the boost on Channel Blast, Summoning Portal, is a very unusual boost. It is an expensive boost that lets you return up to 2 cards from your discard pile to your hand.
Okay.
So if they parried Black Death and you like lost both your Black Deaths, you could Summoning Portal it, and then the turn after EX transform it.
I could get both back.
So you can always get cards back if you're willing to spend Charnel Blast's boost and also 2 force.
Okay.
So you are fairly sturdy. The downside is that yes, you really really need these abilities, and yes, this is a very tempo intensive action, right? Like you have to play this, and then next turn maybe you EX transform it, and then next turn, all right, now you're online.
Now you have a thing, and oh, but I just spent 3 force, and I'm not going to be fully reloaded in order to actually use ritual magic for another turn.
Exactly.
I got it.
So
Okay. So if
so
I have
it's a respectable thing.
10 life, and I don't have this component of my game plan yet, I need to kill them. I can't afford to be building up an
Yeah.
engine when I'm under pressure.
Exactly. And
Okay.
so killing them usually means, you always have Carmine offering in some capacity, whether the boost to like play a ranged game or whether it's just trying to, ping them out of attacks, that
Right.
even with a little bit of setup. You've got you've got Charnel Blast possibly, which let's talk about it. Charnel Blast is a sweep like, which is not really what she wants because she doesn't actually do great in terms of taking damage. But Charnel Blast has a really really good line of text on it.
Yeah.
And so what that means, this card starts off pretty bad. Once you get
Yeah.
one transform, it becomes pretty decent. 6/1, 1/4, and once you get two transforms, it's
It's better sweep.
a focus like. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a better sweep. 3 transforms, it's like insane. 4 transforms, it's godlike.
Right.
So
And it's going to be tough to get my most important transforms down, but I'm going to have two over the course of the game. I'll find a
yeah,
way to get. I can probably find a way to get on curve range 2, on curve range 3. I could probably make that happen.
yeah. So you're pretty likely to get at least 2 armor on it, and it's not crazy to get 3. It's kind of hard to get 4.
Right.
Especially because that means you're like you chose to transform this.
Right.
And if you don't strike with it, or if the game is going really slow, you've got Summoning Portal as a backup plan.
Sure.
But this card is terrifying. Especially once it's got an extra range on it, you're talking about like an ultra, basically, like 1-3, 6/1 with 3 armor, or 1-4, 6/1 with 3 armor and 4 guard. Like
Yep.
I'd pay
And
2 gauge for that, maybe more.
on a character who has access to either any boost they want to make that scarier at now strike speed, or just +3 power sometimes.
Yeah, you can throw plus 2 more range on it if you want to hit most of the board, or you
Right.
can add you can move and do it with like run or backstep.
Right.
You can tech a thing and do it. It's a very good card, but you have to deal with the fact that early game it's not going to be very good. Like it literally just without the armor, it's just a bad card
Yeah.
to be honest.
What 4 guard at 1 speed is not real. Like
It's
we
it's a
want,
grasp. It's a fine grasp call out, but like
yeah, we want
that's all it is.
we want at least 6 guard on our 1 speed attack. Ideally, we want a little bit more than that, or effective guard rather.
Yeah, yeah.
Is there any use for Summoning Portal other than getting back your really important transform card to try to get another chance at it, or is it just
Yes,
too low
actually.
tempo?
So Summoning Portal. So Summoning Portal does a couple of things. It is very expensive.
Mhm.
Like you're spending three force effectively. And there's a couple of priority cards to get back. So you can get back Carmine Offering, which makes the opponent have to really play around that.
Right.
You can get back Key Transforms. You can get back Sweep for more copies of Light, which is potentially very scary.
Yep.
You can get back Focus for more copies of Reading, also
Yep.
potentially very scary.
Yep.
You can also get back Cross for more copies of Run, which is actually respectable value if you expect to have to run at them a lot.
Right.
But that's more of a like emergency situation. If you're doing that, I feel like you probably are going to get this back and play more Dominion Over the Earth.
Makes sense.
It's just
sure.
kind of better than Run at the specific issue that you're looking at.
Sure.
So
and
basically,
if I'm using, I'm sorry to interrupt. If I'm using it to get back a transform, getting back Carmine Offering is kind of the same as getting back a transform if I still have a copy.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's getting back Carmine. Summoning Portal, getting back like Carmine Offering and a card you want to transform is totally reasonable.
Right.
Especially if you have like a spike in your hand and see if they're willing to play around that Carmine Offering spike mix up.
See if they'll call it out. But I'm also giving them hand information. They will parry that if they haven't already.
Yeah. And more importantly, if you're getting back normals, reading is always a risk, right?
Definitely.
So you have to be careful about that.
Right.
It's a little tricky to use, but your cards are good. The main thing is that it's a bunch of resources. You don't have resources.
Right.
So make it like really count. So Charnel Blast, great card, great boost, expensive as hell. You probably can't afford it. Figure out how to make it work.
Right. Okay.
Speaking of cards that you probably can't afford, let's talk about Death Knell.
That's 10 damage.
Yeah, 10 damage for 1 gauge is really a premium rate.
Yeah.
Which would be a lot better if it actually had the ability to hit.
Range.
Yeah. So Death Knell's a weird card. It's kind of a bimodal card. It like does different things in each mode. In base mode, it's basically if they're planning to sit on the spell circle and chuck projectiles because the 6 powers both miss on the spell circle, it's the mix up.
Okay.
It is only 3 speed. So, you might just get hit.
Any sort of movement, and a lot of things that would dive under some of your projectiles would also deal with this.
Yeah, a lot of movement just like happens to outspeed and hit you.
Right.
But it also means that playing slows on the spell circle is kind of dangerous, because if you play a slow and they're on the circle, you just spent 1 gauge to deal them 10.
You just take 10, yeah.
Yeah, which is a disaster.
Right.
It's got two abilities that are both very relevant. The first one is you can spend more gauge to make it bigger. That's really good. I
Right.
mean, your gauge is mostly spent for some combination of moving and changing cards and Carmine offerings.
Right.
But if you don't want to do that, I'm happy to play a big range, like range 1 to 3 nuke that deals 10,
Right.
because maybe it might even be more than 10, because you might have a spell circle, or you sorry a diabolic aura or some
Right.
other buff.
And also, if you've
Um,
got it in the middle of the arena, 1 to 3 is.
yeah,
I
the
mean, you
difference.
wouldn't have that with Diabolic Aura. I see your point about it being bimodal then, but you could make it hit
Yeah,
a lot of space.
yep. The issue is that hitting a lot of space means you might have to spend as much as 4 gauge, which you
Right.
probably don't have. You don't get gauge that easily.
Right. And
So
you probably want it for changing cards and getting stuff.
yeah, it's a real risk. It's a
Okay.
real risk.
Okay.
So yeah, it's 10 damage though. Hard to argue with 10 damage.
Sure.
So yeah, the other thing is that in Exceed mode, it becomes stun immune.
Yep.
So now the whole 3 speed is a lot less scary. You can still be dived, and they can still cross out because you don't get the +0 to 1 range from
Oh, from
Curse the Earth.
Curse the Earth. Sure.
But all things considered, it's a big stun immune, just close range punch. It's a mega sweep,
Right.
in some senses, and that's pretty good. It's a good finisher. You just have to have somehow pushed a bunch of gauge.
Right.
What's important is that because you spend the gauge as it before, if it's gonna miss or get stunned, you do only spend one,
Right.
and if they're like one space away, you only spend two. So it's got a lot of flexibility, which is
Okay.
really nice.
So this isn't
Um,
necessarily just a win more card, but given Jeanette's limitations, she's going to have to be either playing very, very well to how do I put this? She's going to have to be playing very well to in order to afford using this card along with all the other stuff that she's doing, but still be playing in a close enough game that she needs to hit with it. Otherwise, she would just win another way.
It is a pretty good kill shot, is the main thing. Like, you can, if you do end up with 4 gauge, and you're like, even if you don't have a lot of cards in your hand, if they don't have cross or dive, like, you
Right.
might just kill them,
You might just win. Okay.
and like just win at some reasonable rate is a pretty a pretty good sell.
Yeah, that's
I'm
true.
not going to complain with just win.
Okay.
So, you know, it's a great card. It has limitations, and you have to play around them. And sometimes you feel like you just want to play the mix up and play a raw 3 speed like Spike,
Sure.
and
They
they just
they
explode.
they explode, sure. Um,
Yeah.
one of the reasons that I really want this card to be impractical is because I'm looking for force anywhere I can get it. And
Oh
I'm
yeah.
not spending this as force ever. It seems
No,
like.
you are not doing that.
Yeah,
You
so
if you're spending Carmine offering as force, then things have gone very wrong.
yeah, so I
But Death Knell's
need
force, yeah.
that's reasonable then.
Yes, absolutely.
All right,
Death Knell is forced to either move or, more importantly, change cards.
change cards,
Totally
sure.
reasonable.
Okay.
If you've got Blood Thorns and you like pitch a Death Knell and a card from your gauge to draw 4, +1 for turn, like just do it.
Right.
Don't feel too bad about it.
Right. Okay.
Um, yeah. Speaking of weird impractical stuff, Enervation. This card is expensive. It probably can't cost less for game balance reasons.
Yep.
This card is comedy. It reducing the opponent's range by 1 is just not an effect that we really want to exist in the game. It makes, if you look at the normals, it makes Grasp, Assault, and Dive just stop existing.
They just don't
Like
work anymore.
they just don't hit.
Right.
Cross gets pretty jank. Focus and Sweep, like everything else just gets worse, but like these cards just stop existing.
Right.
Um, you rarely just play Enervation. Like, it just doesn't seem worth it most of the time. What it's really good at is it can break setups if the opponent like has a card that you absolutely have to respect.
Right.
A lot of the time those are like assault likes or grasp likes. If you're looking at things like Ken's Super Shoryuken, or any assault like Way of the Warrior assault, or anything that's got a big movement based hit confirm ability.
Right.
A lot of those have 1 printed range,
Have
and this just
one
deletes them.
actual range. Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
this is at best it's going to be super matchup dependent, but it might actually be relevant sometimes.
Yeah. It's very funny when it works. It is also effectively a +0 to 1 range like advantage, and if you look at the speed curve,
Sure.
except
Yeah.
in the opposite, is it the opposite of most speed curve effects? Like, usually it's you do stuff from 1 away. This is they have to get 1 closer to you.
Right.
which still has a lot of the same dynamics, but it's a little more awkward,
Right.
given the cost. But it's it's rarely like useless. It is occasionally very, very powerful but expensive, and it is often fine, I guess.
Right. So most of the time, this is going to be force. Sometimes in certain matchups, in certain situations, it's going to be enervation. And if it's the end of the game, and frankly, at 10 damage, the end of the game could be earlier than I think.
I
It's
mean,
definite.
if you're in the mid game and you've got like 3 gauge, you like didn't draw your specials and you hit with some ultras, and the opponent is a relatively slow character who you think you can land death knell on, like I might just slam death knell.
You might
What's the
just
worst that
throw it.
happens? I lose the gauge,
You lose one
but
gauge, right?
like that's me being a person who craves mix-ups. I think
Sure.
that might not be the smart thing to do, but the upside is really high.
Right. And it is
So
inarguably the cool thing to do.
yeah, I mean, look at
Okay.
that card.
Yeah.
You just like point at them and they die.
So
Um,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, I was gonna say like that's kind of Jeanette in a nutshell. Like she has a lot of optimization and nuance, but it's not as reliable as a lot of the season 2 characters who just like go get super reliable with a lot of practice.
Right.
Her economy is really her big issue, and her lack of movement combined with her lack of card draw. But her action compression is insane. Her damage is absolutely insane. Her cards are good. You're like a boss character grappler hybrid, except you're like not a boss character because most boss characters have great resource
Have
flow.
great resources, right?
You're just this walking ball of horrible murder death.
Right. Well, I mean
Yeah,
that sounds fun, right? That sounds like a good way to live your life if you can afford it. So I have a couple questions about this.
sure.
I feel like we've talked about what her game plan is to get up to her end game because that involves that's where all the difficulty is. But when I have this, and first of all, I assume that the game is not going to last very long once I have this because I'm going to throw 2 strikes and they're going to die. First of all,
So,
is that accurate?
hmm. So it's a little complicated, and the reason that it's a little complicated is because it depends a little bit on what type of character your opponent is. If they
Okay.
are able to tank those hits, then they're probably going to be tanking those hits, which means that like both of you are about to be losing a lot of life very quickly.
Right. So the game, when I said that the game might be over soon, not necessarily with me winning, but the game's going to be
Yeah.
over soon.
Yeah, so that's one of the issues. The second issue is that a lot of characters have weird defensive effects, whether it's speed dodges or like EX cross type stuff. Your big issue as Jeanette is not really getting like tanked through counter hit or like getting chunked. It's missing just because you
Right.
tend to commit a lot of resources per strike.
Right.
So if they have ways to make you whiff, I've talked a lot about how her economy has issues. A side effect of A, your economy having issues, and B, the way that she works, where she tends to like take copies of her cards out of her deck, she's not a good EX striker.
Sure.
So like your EXs are all nuts, but they're mostly just expensive. And if you're EXing normals, like you're spending extra cards for a little bit of value, and you're already good at generating value.
Okay.
You're mostly getting consistency out of it. She is, however, kind of weak to EXs because she tends to rely. She's very good at generating an on curve attack with massive power. Like you can throw with +3 power assault pretty easily.
Right.
You don't have any real good ways to throw plus speed assault.
That makes
So if
sense.
the
Okay.
so if the opponent kind of crafted their hand or plays like a very speed based neutral, they can survive a bit, and that's where you start having trouble because you're just like committing so many resources per strike and not getting
Right.
anything out of it.
So
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 that's the
that's
Devil's Zone's big weakness.
and sometimes then we sometimes say that range and speed are kind of fungible in Exceed, but that's like if all they're trying to do is cross out and deny me value, they're not even trying to hit me back. They're just trying to make me waste cards.
Yeah,
Being able to hit above curve with a speed 5 option in Bloodthorns or in Assault or something like that in order to try to confirm my power. I'm sorry, above curve wouldn't help the Assault, but because it's not a special. But the range helps me hit. But if they're playing to deny me value and not hit back, they don't care. And speed 6 is still higher than speed 5. They can still cross out.
and similarly, like I mentioned earlier, you often spend a decent amount of force per strike.
Right.
And what that means that you're going to be running through your deck. So
Right.
you might deck yourself, and more
Right.
importantly, you might burn all your mix-up options.
Right. And then they have the one thing that they're holding against the one option, not the one thing they're holding against three
Yeah,
anymore. They can
and don't
deny me that.
and don't forget that once you're flipped, your tools to threaten range are Black Death, which you have a copy of left,
Right.
and Carmine Offering, and now you're boosting Carmine Offering.
Right. Sure.
So she's her range is like she's very good at messing with range. She has all these crazy range based abilities. It's also kind of her weakness, which is one of
Okay.
the reasons she's so interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. So
Um,
so in the late
it's
game
very
then,
specific.
how are we piloting the Devil's Own? Because we
So
we have this
yeah,
like I get the sense one of the things I asked earlier is like, are you boosting once and then striking? Are you like how are you doing this? It seems like committing too many resources is a huge problem for her.
yeah. So just playing the Diabolic Aura down, you've spent one card, right? You've given up the advantage, but you spent one card and then you drew two.
Right.
So you're not committing that much, and especially if they're at a range where they have to respect you. For example, if they're at like range 3 and your mix-ups are live, if you play like a spike or something, because who cares about spike? You hit like a truck anyways.
Right. Sure.
If you still have a Profane Sanctuary up, like what are they gonna do? Are they gonna strike that? Like, do they want to risk eating +3 power Profane Sanctuary? I don't know.
Right.
Do they want to play like an EX Assault and risk playing EX Assault to beat Profane Sanctuary and eat a Charnel Blast,
For
and
9.
suddenly they took like 9 and you armored through it, and like sure they have advantage, but that was a terrible trade.
Sure.
So you're asking a lot of really like the opponent has to play around the fact that you're a walking nuke,
Right.
but you are weaker when they strike into you because your setups are kind of range specific. Diabolic Aura is not guaranteed to go off. It usually does, but especially once longer ranges start getting involved, it's like at 3 or especially at 4,
Right.
you might just not it might just not go off, and
Right.
then you're really dead.
So and obviously I am committing cards to the Diabolic Aura. They know what those are. Those are coming out of my mix up. Um
Exactly. They're
and
face
they're
up, so they know it's there.
and they can play around that. So even if I do action compress my way into it, they know that if I have a copy of sweep here and I just put another copy of sweep down, they know for sure that it's not sweep. So I
Yeah,
need to be
and
careful of that.
interestingly, if you like put Spike down, right, then Spike doesn't have 1, which means like
Right.
Assault is kind of a nombo with Spike, for
Right.
example.
Sure, because
So
I don't actually it's not a range 1 to 3 card.
you could still play Assault, you just won't get the power, and
Right.
like you still get hit and advantage and all the good things.
Right.
But you do sort of telegraph your buffs.
Right.
So that's part of why she's so interesting. You kind of have to make all these gears turn, but the benefit when things do work, if you can kind of run the opponent out of resources, get them in a spot where they can't really run around, and just sort of play some good strikes, is they just crumble like immediately.
Right. I don't need to win too many times when I have this much power in play, when I have the ability to put down all this stuff. But I do need to worry about how hard I'm committing to anything because my resource game is so fragile. So I'm
Yeah, and
basically
also
like
how you win. Because if you're like crossing out, for example, that's pretty good. But like, what are you going to follow it up with? If
right,
you're if you're diving at range 1, like you might double whiff to beat a slow, and that's like pretty good. But how are you going to follow that up? You
right,
don't have a lot of cards, and your cards are kind of situational,
right.
and your economy is really butt, so you can't really search for cards, and you take a moment to get going. So
Okay.
between all those things, like you really have to be really careful about how you play your cards, which means that the big things to know about her, and because of that, not a great wild swinger, like not terrible, but not great, because your
Okay.
cards are mostly good on offense and sort of limited on defense. If you swing a Black Death, they might just miss. If you swing a Charnel Blast, they're too early, it's probably not going to work.
Right.
Uh, your other cards, like if you swing a Profane Sanctuary, you're probably fine. If you swing a Bloodthorns, you might be fine. If you swing Affliction and it hits, like good job, you just won the strike, but otherwise, it probably missed. You know, so hand pressure is pretty rough if in general, if they have like discards or advantage chains.
Okay.
Contrarily, like the characters that kind of boost and take time to reload, you tend to do pretty well because you can just prepare up or change cards up and get set up against them.
Right. Okay. So anybody who gives me time, I can use the time really well but I can't make time any more than I can make resources. I also use resources really well, but I can't really make resources.
Yeah, so you're kind of like Vega in that sense, right? You have this weird ebb and flow of how your resources work. And what's interesting is that a lot of your things that spend resources also generate resources, right? Spell Circle puts you up
Right.
cards,
Yes, and
Diabolic
so does
Aura puts you
Diabolic
up
Aura.
cards.
So
So you're
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Actually, finish your thought. I'll
yeah, I
ask
was
my
gonna say, so
question
you're not like
afterward.
so you can do kind of half setups where you're like just put a card in Spell Circle or just put a card in Diabolic Aura and
Right.
don't do like the big boost and then ritual magic type deals. You know, you can do these weird like partial setups, and you might want to if you think it'll give you a better game plan. But that's a important decision that you as a player have to be like actively making. Like, how much
Right.
control do you want to give to the opponent versus how many resources do you want to spend to keep all the actions for yourself?
Right. It's like what is the exchange rate between turns and cards? Because I'm spending one no matter what I do. I'm either spending more cards with ritual magic or I'm spending more turns with just raw diabolic aura. Either one has counterplay, but I need to evaluate the situation to make sure that I'm doing it right. But the reward if I do it right is that I just probably win because they die
Yeah,
if I do this right.
yeah. They nothing can can eat multiple diabolic aura strikes
Right.
without
Okay. So
insane benefits.
yeah, like the amount of times that we've spent talking about because we have like a counterplay section at the end of these guides. The number of times that we've been talking about the weaknesses in some of the lines here is partially to just to mitigate like this on its own is dumb, and we sort of need to like talk about the ways to make sure that they like we can't oversell it that she's not like
Yeah,
it's not so powerful that you just win the game on its own. You do need to still play the game.
yeah. And not only is her ability really good, her cards are also really good, right?
Right.
Like, she's not a character who bets it all on an ability. She
Right.
has a lot of little engine pieces that are all good, and then they all combine something that's insane. But the engine also has some very glaring weaknesses, which we've been talking about, and like the counterplay, like she's the villain, right? Like, she is the villain of Seventh Cross,
Right.
and that's like how that works, right? You're this crazy sort of arrogant, just like asshole character who just is a mage who shows up and you're like, I guess you die now.
Right.
And then it's at the end of the game, it's like, oh, what did I do wrong? As they just were smart and happened to
Right.
outskill you,
So
and then you fall over.
what you're telling me is that card draw in Exceed is equivalent to like the power of friendship. Because that's clearly what Jeanette was lacking the whole time. And if she could ever understand that, she would be unstoppable.
Probably.
All right, sick.
That's Enchantress. So Enchantress learned the power of friendship. She lost the
Exactly.
power of power, but she gained the power of
Exactly.
friendship.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, I'm down with this interpretation. So we've talked a lot about economy. I want to know a little bit if you can tell me about like I can change cards with one ultra but not two. Am I just prepping a lot, or do you have like cards that you are consistently willing to spend as force, or is this completely just a in the moment decision that you have to make, and it's going to be
It's
hard because it's
really in the
Jeanette?
moment.
Okay,
It's really in the moment. Like, do you have Curse the Earth in play so your special's better? In which case, like, maybe you toss some normals. Do you have things you really need to block? Because like block is your defense, but also it's expensive. You know, you're spending a bunch of force there, which you might just want to tank the hit and then hit back harder.
right,
At which point, like, just get rid of block something that actually does damage. You know, maybe you spend dive because you have other ways to deal with their setups, or maybe you spend assault because it's a little awkward for you, or spike because you don't really need spike that much. But also, like, assault is really good and it gives you it gives you resources if you hit.
right,
And spike, you know, has defend, which makes you more consistent, but like is probably not necessary. But also early game, you know, you really want that ignore guard and armor if they're willing to respect your fasts.
right,
But you also have death knell, which is like a gauge mega spike. So it's it's very in the moment. You know, what range is your opponent playing? How are you doing on resources? Like, did you miss a bunch of stuff that you now like you're just desperate for cards and you'll take whatever you can get?
right,
Or like, did you land or do you think you can land a Carmine? You probably don't ever change cards cross. I think run is just too important for you because you need the movement.
right,
Backstep is less important, but run, like, you are a relatively close range character. If you're playing long range as on base form, you know, go ahead and start spell circling them and seeing what they do,
right,
because that's like a pseudo prepare. You know, it draws you a card in the process, and they have to respect quite above curve options.
right.
Um, But yeah, it's just very, very in the moment, play by
Okay.
play. It's
Okay.
you're making bad choices no matter what.
And some of that is like that's just Succeed in general. You are hopefully, if the character is designed well, you are making difficult resource decisions. That's how this works. But hers are, if you mess it up, they're like crushing because she has such a
Yeah,
terrible
hers are
time.
unusually difficult.
Okay,
Hers are
cool.
unusually difficult.
And the reward is that you get this
Hmm.
stuff.
Yeah, and even like so, it's the reward on spell circle, right? If you're not in exceed mode,
Yeah.
the reward is you're striking way above curve, and you're getting cards for it, right?
Right.
Because you got to basically strike. You like pass the turn to strike above curve. You like
Right.
did a prepare and then you struck. Um, if you and they have to deal with that, and like hopefully they can deal with that because if the opponent lets themselves get hit by spell circle a bunch, they're honestly not playing super smart because
Right.
most characters have an answer. Either
They
it's
have
whether it's
ways to
boost
do
or
this.
movement
Yeah.
related. They have
Yeah.
you shouldn't just be eating spell circle, but you can run situations where like you eat spell circle profane sanctuary, you eat spell circle bloodthorns, like you you do something super silly and you like spell circle black death because they like outplay you by running in and then you get to pull them away, but that's
Right.
very big
You
brain,
put it on like the other side of the board or something.
yeah, I mean, and that's great if it works, but are you really willing to risk black death for
Right.
that?
Right. Right.
um
So
Spell circle Carmine offering is absolutely insane, but they just move 3 and you just spent a Carmine offering for no benefit, so
right. It sounds like you're using this. I'm gonna move this out really quick again.
sure.
When we have, because when we were talking about this earlier, the question I asked was like, can you kind of sort of just ignore this? And you said yeah, but it sounds like there are some setups. There are some things that I can do that are a little bit more technical and a little bit fiddlier, and there always is counterplay. There's never just like a I win button unless we really are like over here. But what you were talking about was like putting the spell circle down, uh, getting resources that way, and then seeing what they do. So if I'm what is a circumstance on the board where you would be okay putting spell circle down? Just walk me through your thought process on
So
how you would
okay,
do this.
so let's think a little bit about this. So let's say we are here, right?
Sure.
So if we're in this position, I would feel okay putting spell circle down.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that so Ryu, what's he threatening right now? So he
Re-
can
Ryu's got Hadoken.
so I'm putting he's got Hado, and Hado is really good. It hard loses to Black Death,
Right.
like hard loses to Black Death.
Right.
He's got Metsu Hado, which I think doesn't hit here. It's 2 to 5. I want to
Yeah.
say
It's 3 to 5. I think maybe it's 2 to 5.
3 to 5. I think it's 3 to 5. I
Yeah.
think you're right. I think it's 3 to 5. So that just doesn't hit here.
Actually,
He
regular
can
Hadoken doesn't hit either. Now that I think of it.
sure. So if
Yeah.
we're at 6, let's
Yeah.
say.
Sure. Yeah.
So
Let's do
like
this.
so if you put something here, and let's say I put Bloodthorns down, right?
Okay.
So Bloodthorns loses to Hado, but if he's doing Hado, he has to respect the fact that it could be Charnel Blast.
Right.
It could be Profane Sanctuary. So like, what are his options? If he crit Hados into me, for example,
Right.
which is not insane, then he trades down pretty hard into Charnel Blast potentially.
Right.
If I play Black Death from hand, he loses, but I do lose whatever this was,
Right.
which is fine.
Right.
It's like it's not amazing, but it also like makes him think a little bit. Like it means I can potentially break his setup without having to spend that many resources
Okay.
because I drew cards doing this.
Right.
So it's like fine, I would say. And if he's doing anything but Hado, then he probably just gets hit. So maybe
Right.
he like moves away and Bloodthorns would still hit. Maybe he moves in and now like I get to strike, which means if I get to strike, I outspeed Crit Hado with Profane Sanctuary or Affliction,
Right.
which is pretty good. So, it's a decision. But and
Right.
again, that's Ryu, who has like a notably good projectile game.
Sure.
If we're talking somebody who doesn't have a fast projectile or has a fast projectile that's like doesn't run the risk of getting hit as hard. So, someone like say Ken, who has a really strong projectile. Ken, is he gonna risk throwing crit crit Hado here,
into either of
I can
these.
stun him. Yeah,
Yeah,
I stun him into either of these. I lose an Eternal Blast if I have stats.
right,
Like, what else is he gonna do? He can boost, but like, I'm still striking above curve,
right,
so my boosts are potentially a little risky. He can retreat, at which point I whiff Black Death, but like he probably also whiffs a card, and then I struck, but I did like a pseudo prepare earlier,
right. Okay,
so I basically just prepared and struck with a whiff special.
right.
And
So
if I whiff profane, I get a card out of it. So it's like it's fine.
so what you're doing as we're talking through this is you are analyzing the things that he could do and evaluating like the win and loss case for whether you would benefit from putting a card down. And it feels like the problem with excuse me cards the problem with this instead, right, is that now there are just way too many losing options. Like
Yeah,
if you are doing spell circle in melee range, it's you're, by passing the turn, you are giving your opponent way too much opportunity to do something to you that, you know, back here, you were talking about like he's really got like probably three options. He could move, he could attack with one thing, or he could boost something, and probably I can cover a couple of those and have resources in the process. Up here,
yeah, he
by
just does what
passing
he
the turn,
does.
he has way too many options for me to actually feel safe about putting it down. So this is a ranged punish tool, and my opponent probably won't give me range very often.
The other thing about spell circle is that spell circles benefit, right? So you basically do a prep into strike is how spell circle works, right? You
Yeah,
prepare on the first turn because you draw two cards, and then you strike on the next turn.
right,
Spell circle, the benefit for doing that like weird kind of restrictive combo is you get extra range
right,
at the cost of commitment and forcing yourself to strike and spending an action not boosting or whatever.
right,
And if extra range is not that useful, like extra range in melee is just not that good.
right. So literally, why didn't you just prepare one turn and strike the next turn if you're doing this in
Yeah,
melee range?
it's not like your cards are bad. You can just play the cards.
Right. Okay.
Um,
So in situations where I have a decent amount of board on my opponent, like probably at least four spaces between us, I've crossed out. They wild swung something. We wound up at range. Maybe capitalize by putting down spell circle. Otherwise, it really just probably isn't worth it.
yeah, I mean, it also get better as their options start to deplete if you can cover more things, or if they don't have like great immediate counterplay boosts,
Okay.
or if they have just like if they happen to specifically lose. It's hard to cover them with Charnel Blast because it has a hole on it.
Right.
They can always just jump onto the spell circle.
Sure. Sure.
But if you have Charnel Blast and Death Knell,
Right.
then it gets a little better.
Now you're throwing a scary mix up. But also, by the time their options are dwindling, you're kind of hoping to do this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, it's legitimately a very complicated ability, and
Yep.
that's why it's kind of a fine shorthand to ignore it. The
Okay.
main thing is that it gives you a very interesting like grappler anti-zoning tool that no other grappler really has. Like Taker kind of has that with his pulls,
With
but
Spark Bolt and Pull, sure.
and kind of Sparkbolt. Yeah, Sparkbolt is pretty committal, and you need to set up for it.
Right.
Spell Circle, it's less of a you set up for it, and more just like it happens. It's not worth actively trying to set up for it. It's just
Okay. So at some point, because I'm scary at range one, they might make range on me. And I can say, well, actually, you're not safe from me here. But I
yeah,
shouldn't be working to set this up. This will happen if they're playing a certain way.
exactly.
Okay, now I got you. Cool.
It's just part of your arsenal of tools that you need to know how to use because they're really good, but they're really expensive.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Um, we've talked a little bit about the normals as well, and you mentioned some of the use cases like run is so important on her, and various other sort of
Yeah, run is
tricks.
great, and yeah, so like grasp is great because it's fast. You don't really care that much about fierce. Like you have plenty of power to go around.
Right.
The nice thing about grasp is that it's so fast that it's probably going to hit, and you're okay trading down a little bit if it gets you gauge
Just to get
because
gauge,
that lets you
sure.
exceed faster. It gets
Yeah.
you your Carmines. Like it's fine. It's rarely bad if you're hitting.
Right.
Cross, dodging slows is important. You have other ways of dealing with slows, but they're kind of limited. So if you cross out, you have to deal with the fact that you're now at range with limited ways to get back in.
Right.
Run, on the other hand, gets you in, and you're great at close range. Assault, if you assault into prep, then good job. You just got some resources and closed in, so it doesn't hurt. Backstep is finicky. Uh, Dive is interesting because dive beats slows, and people will play slows a lot into you early game because your various fasts don't actually beat slows that well, with the exception of the Prophet Sanctuary, which
Right.
still doesn't like win. It just trades, and
And
most people are fine throwing sweep into 3 armor.
it gets you a transform. So like you are spending your early game setting up your engine. They're spending their early game making you trade life to set up your engine.
Kind of, except this is like not a great transform,
Oh,
right?
good
This is
point.
the bad
Right.
one.
Right. Sure.
So, and intentionally so. If
Right.
this was one of the good ones, it would feel really bad.
Right.
So you're kind of doing a middle ground. You're picking them for 3. Maybe you're trading a little bit. You're like trading about even. But the other thing about Jeanette is that her abilities are all very offensive focused. She has crazy action compression and great offensive cards. Her defense is really only Charnel Blast.
Right. And only in
And
certain circumstances in the middle and late game. Right.
yeah, and Black Death, like, kinda, maybe. It's got guard, but it's got only 5, and it's got weird range holes. So,
And you really don't want to
you know,
whip
s-
with it.
exactly. So, like, late game, if the opponent is a character that's gonna like pop off and just be hitting you a bunch, like a lot of the season 7 cast that can throw +1 power on things,
Right.
that's pretty scary. You might, if you just don't get a turn to strike, then you don't do much.
Right.
And but a lot of those characters tend to be quite committal, and they have to respect the fact that you can always just be like, "Nope, Carmine," in the middle of their weird combo chain, and they just cry.
Right. And you
So
get awesome stuff out of it too.
yeah, the ability to be like, "Nope, Carmine," is really most of your defense.
Right. Gotcha.
It
Okay.
is a ignore guard Shoryu. Ignore guard Shoryu is incredible.
Yeah, that's really, 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 really scary.
But it's kind of all you got.
Right. And so you were talking about dive just because they're gonna be mashing slow into me sometimes, especially in the early game. I do need something to
Yeah,
deal
like
with
they're
dive.
not all gonna get Carmine. Yeah,
Right.
like they're not all gonna get Carmine. And if they happen to like line the focuses up with your Carmines, then you just might not have enough health to pop off on them.
Right.
Um, yeah, so Spike, same thing. Like if they tend to skew towards playing slows, Spike is good.
Right. In the late game, you don't need
But
it.
like otherwise, yeah, you don't need it. Playing a +3 power Spike is a great a block call out, but
Right.
that's fine. I mean, people are willing to block you. Like you're spending a bunch of resources to get blocked, and yes, you're hitting really hard, but also if they have card flow, they can just tank it.
Sure.
So Spike is good in that situation,
Sure.
but that's not like a general purpose thing.
Right.
Obviously, sweep is great. Plus speed is really good, though potentially less important on you because you're like got a bunch of good fast options. It more depends on how the opponent, like how their kit is shaped. If +2 speed like completely disables them.
Right. And
Um,
we've mentioned throughout the circumstances where if you've got ritual magic or something now, preemptive strike on mid speed or something is
yeah,
awesome. You got plenty of ways to
ritual
make
magic
that
preemptive
happen.
is great.
Yeah. You also
Yeah, ritual
briefly
magic really makes a lot of these crazy.
totally you also briefly mentioned a setup for defend that I think it might have been to confirm affliction. I can't remember. Um,
Defend can't really confirm too much. Like defend can confirm bloodthorns pretty easily. It's also kind of funny with death knell in normal mode. Like if you do like a defend spell circle death knell, what are they gonna do?
right.
They have to get like way away, but also that is kind of committal.
Sure.
It's fine. Defend is defend. It's never really bad.
Right.
Focus is good because of your defensive issues. Reading is obviously incredible on you because if you can land hits, you get huge value out of it.
Right.
So if you can read them and land a Black Death or read them and land an Affliction, hell yeah, that's excellent value.
Right.
If you read them and land the Death Knell, like you might just win.
You're awesome.
So yeah, you have good uses of reading, and notably like reading Death Knell at speed 3 is not like super EX sensitive. If you Death Knell, read Focus, read Sweep, even if they EX it, Death Knell is still gonna crush it.
Right.
EX Focus is only 9, EX Sweep's only 8. So, and then EX Spike still whiffs, and then Dive was gonna win anyway. So reading with Death Knell is if you were gonna hit, you hit, and if you were, they can't really do that much about it.
Right.
So that's pretty good value. Reading plus Death Knell is great. Reading plus Carmine is nice, I guess. Carmine is pretty reliable. So if you can read like a sweep and Carmine it,
If
then
you were
like
if
that's
you,
probably worth doing,
to
to be
do
honest.
do it to get rid of an important option of theirs, not necessarily to confirm Carmine. Carmine was going to hit anyway.
Yeah, it's just a lot of action compression, right? Like you get rid of a sweep, you land Carmine offering, you get a transform, you spend a focus. It's just a bunch of good things happened.
Right.
And even if they EX it, Carmine actually was playtested for a bit with one power, and the answer was just like it's feels so bad to get an EX crush when that happened that
Sure.
it ended up going up to 2, which makes it obviously way stronger.
Right.
But
Definitely.
she has enough other issues that she's allowed to have her power budget glued into this absurd ultra.
Right. That makes sense. And then block is basically block because you need to tank hit sometimes, and parry if you need to
Yeah,
do the
it's
parry meta stuff of season 2.
block is nice if you need to get rid of like a scary fast card, but most of those hit pretty hard, and you don't want to actually be spending that much force unless they're
True.
really committed. If they're overcommitting to something, then sure, go ahead, block it.
Right.
But parry is obviously important for a transform based season, and parry is kind of funny with ritual magic because you can like see their hand and then strike,
Oh, sure. Yeah. Uh,
which can come up.
you gain advantage off of that strike. You strike with reading next turn. You get all sorts of fun setups that way.
Yeah,
Okay.
but
Cool.
yeah. So that's I think Jeanette in a nutshell.
That's the
She's
kit then.
Yep.
Interesting. All right. So, and we've sort of talked about counterplay this whole time, like make her whiff, make her spend resources, zone her out, make use of her bad economy to deal with her. Any other notes
Yeah.
about how to stop her that you want to talk about?
Your boosts are really important because I mean I know the other characters that I've talked about so far have had a pretty bad boost game. Her boost game is also not great. I mean, she's got this, which is respectable, but it's not stats. She's
Right.
got this, which is really good, but it's
And it's on Carmine
expensive
offering.
because you're spending Carmine.
Right.
And she's got this, which is really scary, but it's expensive and kind of committal and situational.
Right.
So most characters can outboost her. The downside is that once she gets ritual magic, it's hard to outboost someone who has this much action compression and also potentially plus range.
Right.
So she's in this weird middle ground of you can outboost, but like this is active even on defense, so it's not like they're just getting guaranteed value. But using your boost to their best capability is very important. She's a character where you may be willing to strike even if it wouldn't necessarily be the smartest. If her hand is a little bit low and you think you can take advantage, it might be more worth it
Right.
because she
You mentioned
is pretty weak in that position.
resource pressure. She doesn't want a wild swing, but she also doesn't want to spend cards from hand.
Yeah, so resource pressure is pretty good against her in general, which means that advantage chains are great, and
Yep.
if you don't have that, just like assault is good into her.
Right.
She doesn't like her speeds are pretty high, right? She's got 1, 3, 3, 5, 6, 6, 7, but she doesn't hit very hard. So, unless you hand like hit one of the 3 slow cards.
Right. Or in the
So
in the late game, then she's hitting very hard, but she's setting up for it on her turn.
yeah, and if she's forced to exceed with not many cards in hand, she's way less scary.
Oh, okay. So
So
when it's not a situation necessarily where I should be as Jeanette. Sorry to jump back to Jeanette's strategy for a
yeah,
second,
go for it.
but I got 2 transforms down in a gauge. Okay, time to go. Mash exceed right away. I actually need to prep and build up first and then flip.
Yeah, you're kind of like Iaquis, where your exceed mode just costs a bunch of cards when you flip. So if you exceed and then don't flip, like your exceed doesn't do anything, right?
Right.
You have to then take actions to use it. So if you exceed and then draw cards and then take the action, it's usually better to draw the cards first and then exceed and then take
Right.
the action.
Yeah, because before I've exceeded, I have that gauge. I could still be threatening Carmine offering. Like I'm a little bit better on defense when I have stuff to do.
And also the board might change and you might legitimately want spell circle in a pinch. Or
True.
you might want like the ability to risk throw an EX or something just might happen.
Okay.
Once you've exceeded, you're committed, right? Your
Right.
range options are now gone.
Right.
They do not exist. You have
Right.
Black Death and that's it.
Right. That makes sense.
So if you can't make that work like immediately, you may have made a mistake.
Okay, that's good to know. So opponents who can take advantage of those low and like after I've done one of these big payouts, my opponent is probably almost dead, but they're probably not dead yet. And now I got low hand size. I need to reload somehow. Then they aggress into me and can keep me down for a while.
Yeah, that's your biggest risk usually
Okay.
is working around that.
Okay. That'll make sense.
So,
Um,
yep.
cool.
That's kind of the counterplay is all she's a very weird character because she's so situation dependent that like strategy and counterplay all kind of blend together with
Right.
her.
And she's very polarized, right? She has a lot of really, 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 really ridiculous strengths that you probably can't like you how well can you counterplay Carmine offering besides hoping that you land a focus into it? Like it's just good.
Yeah, it's character dependent. Like if you have armor boosts, you can kind of filter it out, but
Right.
again, then like you might end up eating something else, like a charnel blast, which doesn't really care if you throw armor into it, or a profane sanctuary, which again doesn't care that much. You're still
Sure.
getting resources.
Sure.
Or like worst case, you throw a boost and then she does blood thorns, and like the thorns stop you and you just whiff.
Right. Yeah.
So
Okay.
so there's a lot of weirdness.
Yeah, so like some things I can't really counterplay. Some things actually turn into a mix up. Some things she's just got like massive weaknesses that she has to compensate for. That'll make sense. And then I guess unless there's more strategy stuff that you were going to mention, I do have one final question for you.
No, go for it. I think we've run in pretty good detail.
Cool. So the last question, you touched on this briefly, but the meta that Jeanette was a part of was a much more methodical, much kind of grindier, less action compression, less high, like lower tempo kind of meta. If she got time warped up into a modern like season 4 through season 7 meta, how would she do? Would she have to play differently? Would she just get run over?
Good question, honestly. So a lot of the more recent characters just tend to spend a lot of resources, which is fine.
Right.
Um, you run so there's gonna be more things that beat Carmine offering on offense. That just the development of 7 speed range 2 attacks has just gotten more common, I
Right.
think, since she
Sure.
was printed.
Sure. Sure.
Um, beating Carmine on defense is like usually trading, but like outspeeding it on offense is really good because it means that she can't just threaten that range 2 poke.
Right.
Um, action compression is bad for her, but what's interesting is that action or like for her to deal with. But what's kind of interesting is that action compression tends to be like in lieu of power. Like if you have a lot of action compression, you usually don't hit that hard.
Generally not, unless you're like
There
May
are
or somebody.
exceptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and May is scary, but also May tends to be kind of committal and is pretty weak to Carmine as a result.
Sure.
Um, and also I feel like May also has issues with blood stuff like blood thorns where it like freezes movement or messes with you.
Right.
Um, and so if you can just throw mix-ups into them and then count on running them over, she does play a little bit more like a Guilty Gear character than the rest of season 2.
Okay.
I mean, May also has, her own econ hurdles. So I would say she probably struggles a little bit, but because her high points are so incredibly high and she tends to not really have to worry so much if the opponent has if the opponent has a bunch of decent card shapes, she can just kind of play cards into you
Right.
and do fine. If the opponent has a couple of really good card shapes, then she can try and Carmine those specifically or like mitigate them with her weird defensive tools. Um, if the opponent is super aggressive and advantage chaining you and blowing you up, like if you have someone like Soul, for example, I don't know how she would fare into Soul necessarily. I haven't played that matchup. Soul definitely has to respect Carmine.
Right.
Soul definitely has to deal with the fact that late game she may have a kind of reliable seven guard attack if she's doing well. And a lot of characters aren't really prepared once she gets affliction down because that a lot of those characters tend to be a little more speed sensitive.
Sure.
So getting that access to bump 2 or 3 attacks above curve is pretty nice.
Right. So
So she's got
it sounds like
tools.
she would be reasonable. She might not be front of or middle of the pack. She's not like an apex predator from another time who's come back, but she she could compete, it sounds like.
I think she's always going to be a middle of the pack character, just because her high points are so high, but she's kind of unstable.
Right.
Her low points are really low, and if she doesn't get going, she just kind of crumbles.
Right.
But she's got things she's good at, and she's really good at them. And the opponent really needs to respect that more than anything else. So I feel like she'd be solid mid tier. She's super fun. You get to do a lot of cool stuff, and even as the game sort of moves more towards that, she still has the great normal boosts that season 2 gives you.
Right. She still has the season 1
She's
through
not
5
light.
normal stat boosts.
Yeah, light is a little worse on her because you may have noticed she doesn't have a lot of mid speeds.
Right. Yeah,
She
you're
doesn't have those like
basically
mid speed chunky cards.
unless you're confirming +6 power off of something, you might not care that much about speed unless you're trying to confirm a transform or something.
Yeah, your only real mid speed is Death Knell,
Right.
and it's a really good mid speed, but it's expensive.
Right, sure.
Um, so yeah, so that's one like issue that you have, but fundamentally, I think she'll always be a little bit carried by just big red numbers and
Yep.
the fact that because she is like the only way for her to churn her deck and look at new cards is using her ability, right? Because that discards cards to draw new cards.
Right, right.
So she'll, as long as there's a place for just playing good cards and trying to build this insane like unstoppable combo. Once you have +0 to 1 range and ritual magic down, you are absolutely terrifying.
Makes
Your
sense.
opponent is looking at reliable 6 power above curve attacks nonstop that usually give you some kind of bonus in the process, and that's not a thing a lot of these characters can deal with because one of the things that's really changed in Exceed design over time is it's not as common to get things that have 6 or more guard. Really, you
Right.
can see 6 guard still around, but Exceed has gotten very sensitive to +1 power in
Right.
general. And
Yeah.
when you break that curve, when you have fast
+3.
ignore guard, yeah, when you have +3, when you have like fast ignore guard, like how often do you see fast ignore guard?
Yeah, very
Uh,
rarely. Like outside of like a Noel or somebody, and even then it's a fast mid speed. It's not 7 speed.
Yeah, I mean the closest to Carmine offering is probably Milia's 1/2 that advances 2 and ignores guard if it crosses up,
Yeah, sure. Or
and
or like
that's become more counterplay.
Big Tree, the Eno.
Yeah, yeah. So that's like a situational 5
Right.
speed ignore guard, and those cards are both really good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, they're super strong cards.
Um,
But this is neither of those are 7.
yeah,
And
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 also
neither
not.
and neither of those initialize this crazy engine for you.
Yeah, I mean Milia's kind of does because she can spend gauge really well, but
Right.
it's nowhere near Carmine offering.
Sure,
Like
sure.
it's really good. It's nowhere near Carmine offering.
Makes sense.
So yeah, that is, I think, pretty much the long and short of it.
Well, cool.
Scary character, really fun. Would definitely recommend if you want to just watch these engines turn, and because a lot of the really strong season 2 characters kind of feel a bit like they play themselves because their engines are kind of obvious.
Yeah.
They have these really clear things. Jeanette never gets to that point. You
You're
never
you're
have
always
easy
making
choices.
really tough decisions the whole time. So you'll still have fun even after you've played a lot of season 2. Well, awesome. Andarel, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your expertise. What a cool character. I'm really excited to try her out sometime. Really appreciate you taking the time
Yeah.
tonight to teach me.
Yeah, we did one thing we didn't talk about too much actually, which we kind of usually close on is
Oh yeah.
similar characters.
Oh yeah. Tell me a little bit about similar characters, please.
Um so the like sort of golden rule for Jeanette type characters is you have to be really good at spending resources, right? You got to be like if you got money, you want to use it well. So like Arakune is up there because
Okay.
he has this weird like hybrid engine where he burns a lot of resources to try and blow you up.
Right.
Hazama is kind of in the same boat. He's got again better card flow than she does, and his payouts are lower, but
Right.
he's still pretty scary. Soul bad guy, really good at spending resources to blow you up, and to a lesser extent May. I think Soul's better at it. Um, Gold Lewis has a little bit of the feel, but his decisions are more about like what card you play because he's got that same kind of fragile economy of you have a
As
ton
long
of cards if things are going well, but if not,
as long as he's hitting, then he's got his cards. If not, then you're in trouble.
yeah. Um, Akuma obviously is the DNA of all of these crazy powerhouses,
Sure.
as well as Vega, who has a very fragile economy. Those are the notable ones. Polar Knight's got a bit of the feel if you like the big red numbers. We talked
Yeah.
about that a bit.
Grapplers
She
in
would,
general, right? Tager, Potemkin, you've got something
yeah,
going on there.
yeah. I mean, she would murder somebody for Polar Knight's card draw, though. Like that would if she swapped out, Death Knell's boost for a roar of some sort, she would go insane super
Yeah,
fast.
things would be pretty nuts if she had any sort of engine to her.
Yeah. Plague Knight's got a bit of the same, like burn a bunch of cards to do really crazy unreactable stuff, but
Right.
he is much much more reliable than she is, I think.
Right. All right. So if you are if you're I assume most people who are talking or who are watching this are newer players who are more familiar with the characters that you just mentioned than they are with Jeanette. Otherwise, why are you watching a? How did you get here? Why are you watching a Jeanette guide? But if you are a fan of any of these characters and you, like me, got into Exceed and kind of thought that season 2 was a little bit too scary for you, um, take a look at Jeanette because you're going to find something that you like if you like those characters.
Yeah. And Spell Circle, situational card, but still one of the most galaxy brain cards in Exceed. It's
Yeah, it seems like it would feel very, very, very cool to call somebody out with this.
yeah, not sure it's good, but
But
it can be very useful.
it does feel good.
It does feel good. All
Sounds
right.
awesome.
I
All
think
right.
that runs through it.
All right, Andarel, really, really appreciate it. What a cool lesson. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for hosting.
Of course, happy to do it. Everybody watching at home, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had a good time. Hope you learned something. I will see you all next time. Goodbye, everybody.